If you've been watching the news the last few days, you know that there was a leak in the Supreme Court, and it looks like the Supreme Court might be overturning Roe v. Wade, at least how it looked last February. And so there's this phrase lately that people have been using on social media and all over the place. And here's a phrase: it's not about the babies. Now, it's kind of a catchphrase, and it's supposed to eviscerate pro-life arguments, right? Because people are saying, well, it's not about the babies, really. It's just about a political position or religious position. Because if you really cared about the babies, you would provide all these things for them. And here's what one of these, I guess it was more like a meme or somebody posted on, I think it was over on Twitter. I saw a link over to it. And this person, I don't know who it was, apparently she's got a lot of followers, but she says this: if it was about babies, we'd have excellent and free universal maternal care. You wouldn't be charged a cent to give birth, no matter how complicated your delivery was. If it was about babies, we'd have months and months of parental leave for everyone. And then she goes on to list several other things that should be free if we really cared about babies: diapers, formula, child care, preschool, IVF, adoption, on, right? All these things. If we really cared about babies, we would provide all this stuff for free. And I read that and I say, really? And it really didn't take me a lot of time thinking about this before I came up with just 3 reasons that I want to share with you quickly today about why I think this is so ridiculous. This is not an argument against abortion, okay? Number 1, the first one: free stuff and abortion are unrelated. Free stuff and abortion are unrelated. There's just simply no logic to this argument. Hey, if you stand against abortion, then you need to give us free stuff to take care of these children. So the arguments against abortion, the pro-life arguments, have nothing to do with who's providing things, all this for the kids. It's a moral argument. It's that abortion kills an innocent human being. That is the argument. And anything else is extra. Abortion is wrong because it kills an innocent human being who is made in the image of God. But of course, the pro-abortion people don't agree with that. But just for sake of argument, let's move this whole argument a few years out. Instead of talking about a child in the womb, let's talk about a child who's, say, 5 years old. Okay, maybe the mother wants to kill her 5-year-old child. And so I come along and say, look, you can't kill this child. I mean, this is a 5-year-old child getting ready to go to kindergarten. You know, you can't kill this child. And she says, you can't tell me that I cannot kill my child unless you're willing to pay schooling expenses, you're willing to pay for the child's health care, you're willing to pay for the food this child eats. If you're not willing to do that, you don't really care about my kid. No, my argument has nothing to do with who's going to provide the things for this child. My argument has everything to do with the act of killing a person is wrong. But you say, come on now, that's not the same. This is a 5-year-old child. That's different than a fetus, right? Okay, what's different between a so-called fetus and a 5-year-old child? What's different? Well, size. The child's a little, bigger, obviously, but you grow through your whole life. Location. The so-called fetus is in the womb of the mother, and the 5-year-old child is outside the womb of the mother. So it's, the location is different. The size is different. And the other thing that's different is time. It's just the fetus is only a few weeks, maybe a few months after conception, and the child is 5 years after conception. And so those are only things that's really different. Of course, some people say, well, it's viability. Sometimes, children aren't viable yet. The first 15 weeks or the first 28 weeks or whatever they happen to say the science would be at the time, their best guess at it. Well, I would say, okay, if we're going to argue about abortion based on viability, who is actually viable? Okay, is it up to 15 weeks? Is it at 28 weeks? What about a child who's just been born? Is that child viable? If you took a newborn baby and you set it on the table, it's not going to live very long. A 2-year-old, if left to itself, is not very viable. They wouldn't probably live for very long. There's probably some 10 or 13-year-olds that would eat junk food and kill themselves with junk food if they didn't have someone watching over them. So the whole viability question is just ridiculous. Once a child is conceived, this is a child, and it doesn't matter who's going to take care of that child. It is wrong to kill that person. You don't kill people just because somebody isn't going to provide for them. Take any age. And if I stand against a murder at any age and I say, look, you can't kill that person, and you come back to me and say, well, you can't tell me I can't kill them unless you're going to provide for all their needs. That's just ludicrous. It doesn't work for a child of any age or a person of any age. Why would it work for a child that's still in the womb? So that's the first thing that I thought of. Free stuff and abortion. This is totally unrelated, okay? And the second one is that pregnancy establishes responsibility. When you become pregnant, you become responsible for the child. The couple does, both the mother and the father. They're now responsible for caring for the child. By the time most people reach puberty, and by the time they actually are able to have children, they have at least a general idea about what causes childbirth, what causes conception, right? So they have the general idea, but they still go through with the act. And you might say, well, there's they've tried contraception and it failed or whatever. It doesn't matter. You still are responsible for a child. Sometimes we have responsibilities that we don't really want to have. But when you do that act, you are responsible for that child. If the child is an accident, it doesn't matter at all. You are still responsible. Of course, the argument then always goes back to rape. What about rape? Someone was raped. And my response, I guess, to that would be, we're not talking about rape in all the situations. In most situations are not about rape. I haven't seen the statistics, but many of them would not be, right? And so that doesn't even enter into the question. That's just kind of a red herring thrown in there to throw the train off its tracks. But still, it doesn't make a difference. Still, you are the mother or father. That doesn't make it right to kill the child, even if it was rape. Now, obviously, there's things that you can do, and that's a very sad thing. And if you can find out who the father is, he's responsible, right? He's responsible for this. But this is a child. This is a person. And sometimes it works against what we want. Sometimes it's difficult for us to have to deal with responsibilities in life, but we just have to do it. Even responsibilities we didn't choose. Like say, for example, you have a spouse or a parent, who gets very sick and you have to take care of them. You didn't choose that, but it's still your responsibility not to just let them die, but to do something about it. The same thing whenever there's a child that is conceived. This is a child. It's a person who's made in the image of God, and whoever is responsible, they have that responsibility to take care of that child. And the third thing that I thought of when I saw this meme or this statement on social media is that there are free options that are available. Say, well, you can't stand against abortion because, there's so much out there that that should be free, it should be handed. Well, you know what? If someone has a child and they don't want that child, there are Safehaven laws. Every state has Safehaven laws that you can do something with a child if you don't want it. For example, here in Indiana, in the first 30 days after a child is born, you can actually take that child and hand it to a law enforcement personnel, emergency medical providers, or any on-duty staff at a hospital or a fire station, or you can even call 911 and they will come and meet you and take the baby, and just no questions asked, take the baby. And there are many, many Safehaven boxes where at a fire department or something, you can just take your baby, put it in the box, and someone will take care of that baby, and there's no questions asked. So you can do something. It is totally ridiculous to say, well, you can't tell me that abortion's wrong just if you are not willing to take care of the baby. That is not the issue. The issue is about, is this a child? Is this a human being? And the answer is yes. And does abortion kill a human being? And the answer is yes. So abortion is wrong, no matter how you look at it. So I just wanted to share that today because this is such a hot topic. Can't wait to see how the Supreme Court ruling actually comes out. Maybe I'll have a video to make about that too. So God bless you guys. Take care.